Well, good morning, everyone. Good evening, and for those that are good afternoon for those who are not here in Canada. This is our Being Your Own CEO Success Circle that is intended as a support for solopreneurs. And this morning we're going to be looking at emergency planning. And without further ado, I will just get right into some introductions. I will begin at the end of my list today. And so, therefore, that means that I get to introduce myself first. So, I'm Lolan Fuglsang, and I'm in Victoria, British Columbia, and I have been calling myself the Elder Website Geek. I love helping people who are retired or planning a retirement to create an online business. And next is Vivek Rio. Namaste, Vivek. Vivek is in the UK and he simplifies life and business by unifying different technologies and developing software. And let's see, who else have I got here? Fred Jones. He is temporarily in Victoria. He in British Columbia as well, and he facilitates leadership and community building for youth. And I'm looking to see if anybody else has come on. David Flannery is in Illinois, and he creates affordable websites for small business. So, do we have anybody else? I don't think so at this
No.
point.
But for some reason, Twitch has got just now it's showing me complete.
Oh, right.
Now it's back down to just my eye and my logo.
Oh, isn't that interesting? So what
Now YouTube are streaming properly.
wow,
There's you as the main view, and then everybody else above.
yeah. And I'm just going back to um, Spotlight Video. So I'm trying to.
Oh, it's broadcast. No, it's broadcasting something else. It's not broadcasting.
Oh,
You
isn't that interesting?
right? No, it's not broadcasting. No, now we're down to our air again.
Mm-hmm.
It started broadcasting when we were dealing with Mike.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So,
we're back.
so what
So,
what I need to do is share with everyone a couple of things that are a little bit different from other times. I decided that it would be fun to discover how to do a casting simultaneously to YouTube and to Twitch. So that means that we are using another program called Restream. So this morning, what I'm doing is I've got OBS up, and OBS is streaming over to Restream, and Restream is streaming over to YouTube, and hopefully Twitch, and YouTube is streaming to my website. Can you believe it?
I see on your website, it seems to be okay, except that I seem to be on the spotlight.
Yes, and I'm trying to if I go to gallery view, I don't want to go to gallery view, do I? And again, if I'm doing this, it's going to show up in this screen, but stop video, chat, rename, pin video, first pin, cancel spotlight. There. That's what I wanted. So and that because I did that, it's showing up in the video. Yeah. So I was trying to figure out how to make, because every time that we've done this before, somebody else is always spotlighted. So I'm not quite sure what to do about that, and that's a Zoom issue. So what happened?
Yeah,
I'm
and
I'm changing it over to gallery view to see what happens here. So it seems to be showing everybody, and that maybe that's the better way to go.
um, yeah, I was going to say, whenever you do something on your website, I can see your mouse moving around.
Yes. Yes.
And the drop down menus and those things
Yes.
are,
Yes.
yeah.
I was aware of that. I could,
Okay.
because I can see it in the restream screen. Anyway, so another page in the experimental book.
Yeah.
So this morning we were going to chat about emergency planning and for solopreneurs, and I believe it was Alana who raised that question some time ago. What do we do? Um, what would happen to my business if I suddenly got sick and I had commitments to handle things? And I mean, I remember her saying, and by the way, she has notified me that she will join us, but she was waiting for a special announcement in Ireland about the COVID-19. So she will join us momentarily, I think. So, but anyway, she was aware that she had commitments and realized and thought, my goodness, there's nobody that even knows how to get into my into my laptop. So what do we do about that? And I began to think, yes, I have this commitment to manage a company's website. So what if I got sick or something happened? Who would be taking care of that? And that's and I'm sure David, the same would be true for you. You're creating websites and managing people's websites, and if you got sick suddenly, what would you do? So, you're muted, David.
Sorry. Yeah, right now I would have nobody
Yeah,
that would understand what I'm doing. I mean,
yeah,
someone who knew websites could pick up where I'm at
yeah,
without too much problem, but they'd have to know websites. And
yeah,
my wife doesn't know them. My son doesn't know them. My daughter knows somewhat, but she's never been through it, so she'd have a big learning curve to be able to help
yeah,
me.
yeah. So, I mean, even given that, so maybe, I mean, between someone like yourself and myself, because we do know how to do something, maybe it would make sense to have sort of an agreement that if something really happens, could you jump in
Yeah,
and cover for me? And maybe it requires some sort of a written agreement that outlines exactly what would happen, etc. So that would be one thing that you and I could do. Um, but and I guess if you were working with being a virtual assistant, as Alana is, somebody would need to be able to get into her computer and be able to do something.
correct.
So yeah,
It would be, yeah, it would definitely need to be addressed, especially in today's world.
So that would be I'm going to be taking some notes here as well. So the first thing that is to find somebody that has the skill and create an agreement between two people that can cover off. So that would be one thing. So I have a few things. I've done a little bit of research. One of the things that I wanted to share with everyone, and this is a couple of years ago. Dotto Tech did a session on. I've forgotten what he called it. I have a link actually that I could share. He actually created a course, a Thinkific course, on what to do with all your social media and etc. But that was more in terms of legacy planning. So what would your family need to know, and what needs to be set up ahead of time, so if something ever happened to you that it could be taken care of by your family. So he has a course. I think it's free, and in that course, that Thinkific course, he has. There is a video there of the webinar that he did where he sort of talks about it. So that was one thing. For example, in Facebook, there's a place where you go into security and tell Facebook who you are appointing to take care of your Facebook stuff, for example. So. On my website, I will be posting all the links of the things that we're talking about, so that people can go in there, and if they feel the need to go in and do some research. Something else that I discovered that I had never noticed was LastPass. I have all my passwords registered in LastPass. And so what would somebody in my family be able to do if they couldn't even get into LastPass? Because LastPass has all the passwords for everything that I do. And so I discovered in LastPass there's an item down on the left-hand side that's called emergency access, that we need to pay attention and set something up there. So there are a number of places and a number of things that we need to pay attention to. I still haven't discovered or thought of what to do with our YouTube channel. So there is some research that I still need to do, because I have over 200 videos in there. What do we do with it? So again, I mean, if I got sick, it might not be necessary for somebody to go in and do anything, but down the road, if I should kick the bucket tomorrow, what would my family do? So there's two layers of emergency planning that I've been thinking about. So has anybody else given any thought to any of this? Fred, go ahead.
You're muted, Fred.
I know, unfortunately, my mouse is disconnected while I'm doing this. I'm moving the mouse desperately and then realize I got to use the pad. Actually, this afternoon, I'm going to the lawyer to renew my agreements. I had a will that I drew up by myself a few years ago, and one of the fellows on the boat said he'll be the executor.
Mm-hmm.
But looking at what happens with that, I realized that's not fair on him. So I went to a lawyer, and she's going to be the executor, and also power of attorney, and it's almost the same thing. If something happens to me, who is going to be able to handle my finances? And how are they going to access all my passwords and codes to my accounts? Very similar exercise.
Mm-hmm.
The
Right.
challenge is, she said, can I have all your passwords? And I think, yeah, but I don't want to make it easy for you, because maybe something happens in the next decade or so. I hope to be around for a while. And something, people change, and money can have an impact, and they might not her so much, but people in her business, could have access to my passwords and do something they shouldn't do.
Right.
So my concern is, how do I give them power of attorney, but I don't want them to have ready access to all my passwords. I want to put in a step that they have to do before they get access.
Mm-hmm.
My thought is this, and it just occurred to me this morning. I have a little one of those fire safes
Mm-hmm.
with a key that I have.
Mm-hmm.
And if they at any time need power of attorney, they can get into that if they get the key, and I will have the key. The key's on me, it's on my keychain.
Mm-hmm.
So if something happens to me, they can get my keys, find it, get in the power, and then get my password. I will probably not be able to do it myself, because that's why they need the power of attorney. So this whole discussion that we're having is very interesting, because it makes me think about not only business, but as you said, there's different levels.
That's right.
So how do I give people access? And they're a lawyer, they're legal, theoretically they would be honest.
Well,
I assume they would be, but circumstances change.
Yeah, but having been married to a lawyer all my life, they are bound by some very, very stringent privacy rules.
Yes, I know, and so are financial advisors, and so on.
And so are their, like, if they have staff, they are bound by the same.
Right.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
I still don't feel comfortable with handing somebody who I sort of know all my passwords to all my financial accounts.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with Fred. In theory, that works really good, but in practice, it's not always the same.
Yeah.
I know of financial advisors who have absconded with funds. And in theory, they are legally bound, and all of those rules and regulations.
Mm-hmm.
There's good, bad, and ugly everywhere in the world. And you don't know sometimes who are the ugly ones. And sometimes circumstances change. So I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, because it could be one. But anyway, what this discussion has said, what you're looking for when you're saying you want to have an agreement, say, with David, and this isn't really that financial, is it's almost like giving him power of attorney, and you give him power of attorney to access your websites, and you will support the other person's website.
Yeah.
So I say it's a very similar agreement that you're doing. It's
Yeah.
not as legally binding, and it's not as, we're not talking about the finances so much. But still,
but you
it's
also
that type of agreement.
But I mean, all of these things depend on your finding somebody that you absolutely trust.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's why we had the conversation last week about what is trust.
Yes.
It comes up. It
Yes.
it definitely does. And I have worked with I have worked with other consultants in the past, and what all we did, and my husband gave me advice as to how to do it, but as long as an agreement is in writing and is signed by, or agreed to and signed by both parties, it has legal status. It does not have to go through the courts. It does not have to go through a lawyer. As long as it's in writing and it's been signed by two people, it has legal status. So in the past, when we were consultants in Yellowknife, we were all bidding on contracts over in Nunavut because they were busy sort of looking for professional development for their staff, etc. We three of us came together and wrote up an agreement between ourselves, and the agreement basically said that we were going to do this and who was going to submit the invoice and how was the money going to be divided up, and who was going to do what, and all of that was all laid out. And we did that work and never had a moment of grief over it. It just it because the government only wanted to deal with one person, but what they were looking for was a variety of skills and abilities. And so what we did is put together a team, because we all had sort of slightly different strengths and courses that we'd already developed. And so that's how we worked.
And that agreement was wonderful, and that's what you're looking for in these circumstances. If something happens to you, how do you you have an arrangement that can work very well? What is the type of arrangement? So that's a great example of how that can work.
Yeah. So so I guess I guess that would be important. And I mean, when we're looking at our families, they don't have the skills that we have. And so, I mean, to even entertain the thought. Now, I know, David, in your real estate business, you and your wife are able to do probably pretty much all of the things. But that's a partnership, and that's a different kind of situation altogether.
Yes, and we're trusting each other that we're going to not take off with the farm. I mean, it's the same as anybody else. But and real estate has its own set of confidentiality, because we deal with people's finances and stuff like that, and negotiation positions. So like, if they need to sell their house this month because they've got to move to Alaska, if I tell people that without their permission, I'm violating their confidentiality, because and their bargaining position, because now people say, well, they've got to sell by the end of the month, so I offer low because they're going to have to take it. Whereas if I don't disclose that, then people come in and make the right offer, then everything's happy. So you've got confidentiality with that, and that trust, and we get that in writing when we start working with people too. We have a binding contract that says that we're their exclusive agent, and that we will give you these fiduciary responsibilities, and in turn you will not use another agent. And if they want to leave that contract, all they got to do is tell us, and then we void the contract, and they can go to someone else.
Yeah, so there. I mean, in all of these professions, there are legalities and some protections as well. But often, as solopreneurs, I guess we kind of don't think about that. I'm just me, and I'm doing what I know how to do, and I mean, there's so many of us now that are in this quote gig economy. For example, my contract with Chinatown Care, I've been told, don't come in, no visitors. So that puts me out of work for a while. So and I mean, there's going to be lots and lots of people that are in that situation. So I'm thinking that we're all going to need to start thinking about how we support one another, so that going forward, so that we can go forward, right? So something else that I found, and I quite honestly can't remember how I found it now. That was over a week ago. But I did find it again. So there's a site called Prepared BC. BC being British Columbia. So it's a British Columbia government document. And actually, when I went in this morning to look and see where it was, I discovered that there's also all kinds of documentation in there on how to be prepared on a personal level as well. But this one I found is called Emergency Plan for Small Business. And it's a template that asks all the right questions and puts down all the right information so that it's all in one place. So I mean, and it's some of it is got a little bit more than a solopreneur would need, but so it asks all the right questions and leaves space to fill things in, etc. So I will be putting a link to that on my website as well. It is a PDF, so therefore, I find it interesting. People, they share all these things as a PDF, and what do you do with the PDF? Because you can't do anything with it except copy it and handwrite into it. But any one of us, we know how to set up forms and etc. We could use this as a guide to create something that would work for ourselves. So I mean, there's things in here. I mean, there's a lot of the basic stuff. My business name and address and telephone number, the possible risks that it faces, what my business needs in order to function, and that is for the operation, staff in charge and action planning, then my business backup location and evacuation plan, business shelter in place plan, how my business will communicate information, primary emergency contact, etc., how I'm protecting essential business records and processes, my critical contact list, and suppliers and contractors. So there's I mean, it covers quite a bit. So I will be posting that on the website. So Alana, welcome here. This is your topic.
Yeah, I'm very sorry, but I just wanted to, there was some stuff going on over here that I kind of needed to listen in on, and so yeah, I apologize for that because it was my idea to bring this to the floor.
Yeah. So, did you hear anything that you didn't already know in the announcements that you?
A little bit more. They're coming down a little bit harder here because of the lack of social distancing, if you will. Mm-hmm. So there's going to be more of a police presence. There's going to be fines and stuff and that sort of thing. So that was part of the announcement. And the other part was private hospitals acting more like a public hospital so that there's no charges for the treatments if you need the treatments. Mm-hmm. And that sort of thing. So yeah, there was some stuff. I left. They're doing a Q&A now, so I left for that. But I got the gist of the story. Basically, more closures and stricter. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're going to get more strict about your movements.
Yeah, our Prime Minister does a press conference every day around noon hour.
Oh, good.
He's done that for a week, at least a full week. He's been doing a press conference every day. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's important to keep everybody informed. So.
Yes, absolutely. So, we've talked about you'll have to go back and watch. I'm not going to repeat
I will.
everything.
Don't worry about it. I'm good. Don't worry.
But we did identify the fact that some of us who are solopreneurs may need to find a trusted backup and create possible agreements so that if something happened to one of us, somebody else could jump in and take care of those commitments. Because, quote, our families don't know how to do any of this stuff.
You know, a living will kind of comes to mind, you know, to have instructions.
Yep.
In the event of something like that. So I think a living will might kind of fit that bill.
Yeah. Well, we did talk about power of attorneys and all of that. So, yeah. And I think everybody must remember Gina Donaldson. She has a whole program that she'll walk you through, putting everything all in one place, etc. So, yeah. So, but one of and I did mention some other resources, which I will be posting the links on my website. So I'm wondering, have you thought about what you would do?
Well, first of all, I would, you know, the passwords and the clientele would be my main concern. So
Mm-hmm.
it would be backups on my laptop, client files, and, you know, connecting with my clients to let them know if something they were expecting something from me that was not going to be delivered. So I think, like you said, finding somebody you trust that knows how to do that sort of thing. Like my daughter's pretty good at all that stuff. She knows how to use passwords and all that. And so she's actually even used my laptop on occasion. So I would probably designate her, and between her and my husband, I'm sure they'd figure it all out together.
Mm-hmm. But that would be do they have the skill to fulfill what what you agreed to do for your clients?
No. So that would basically
where you need to find somebody who has that skill and create an agreement with that person. So it's got to be somebody that has that skill, but also somebody that you trust. And as I said, it needs to be a written agreement. Yeah.
Yeah, somebody just kind of popped into my mind, but she does, you know, she does things a little differently, but I think she could probably do it for me.
Right. Yeah. So those are some things that we've talked about. Now, Vivek, we haven't asked you. I mean, given your clients and even the volunteer commitments that you have, etc., have you given any thought as to how you would handle all that?
Volunteer aspect is it's a volunteer aspect. So the organization knows that I'm volunteering, so they are well aware that anybody could just not be there any moment.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more or less always arranged in such a way that it does not depend on one person. It's always more than one person who is, I mean, all of whom are unlikely to be affected all at the same time. So that's the whole thing. But coming back to you were talking about agreements and contracts and so on and so forth. While you were discussing the whole thing, one of the the Indian epic story that came to my mind, that is Mahabharata. It's an Indian epic. There are two epics in India, Ramayana and Mahabharata. I'm talking about Mahabharata. In that, the villain follows everything as per the law.
Mm-hmm.
Everything as per the law.
Mm-hmm.
But he does not do it in the right spirit. He's a villain just because and the result of his actions are end up in the war. That's the whole story. The
Yeah.
story is how it ends up in the war, because he does not follow the spirit of the. You make a contract, yes, but what is not written down is the spirit or the thinking or that which cannot really be written down. So I was thinking, yes, all these contracts and writing and signing, multiple people, legal standing, etc., etc. Yes, all that is fine. But if the spirit is not followed, then yeah, it would result in a disaster.
So that goes back to our discussion last time about trust and value systems, and and I mean that certainly in an agreement between two people, you can easily spell out your values that you would enact in customer relations and so forth. I mean, there are ways to spell out a few things.
Yeah.
But it does boil down to the shared values of a couple of people if they're going to do work like that. And when I spoke about my experience, the two people that I contracted with, I knew them quite well. So, and I knew them by reputation, and reputation, but also like I'm one of those people. When I worked for government, he came and did things for, facilitated things for our department, and so I was able to even experience the way he worked. So I knew him really, really well. So yeah. I mean, you wouldn't just go and sign somebody up that just because they know how to do something. There's a lot more involved. There's no question about that. Yeah. Yeah. It is really interesting though. So I see we are we're just a little bit beyond the half hour point. And we had agreed that initially, way back when, that we would try to limit our discussion or our presentation, whatever, to 30 minutes, and that we would then stay on and share discoveries. So I'm thinking that would be today. There's a few things that we want to talk about. So I hope everybody will be able to stay on for a little while. But just before I close us down, I just wondered whether anybody would like to have the last word. Fred, you usually like to have the last word. Would you like to have the last word today?
Why not? I think it really comes down to, as you said, trust and sharing values. And you gave great example of, when you worked up in the Northwest Territories and working with Nunavut, etc. And I think that's the case. It's just the same like we going to the lawyer this afternoon. She's been highly recommended, but I don't know her that well. So
right.
I'm going to sign a lot of papers giving her a lot of power. So I need to protect myself even in that case, because it's not only her, there's partners in her company that might have access to, and they will have access.
Yeah.
So I don't know them at all.
Right.
So, it's that element of whatever we're trying to share. And that's, again, comes back to our discussion on trust. So that I think is the main thing. And of course, sharing values.
Yeah, it certainly
That's
is. Yeah. Well, thank you, Fred. And so now I need to figure out what I need to shut down first. However, I will just close this off by saying it's important to do what you love with passion. And I shall see you next week. And next week we're going to talk about Team Viewer, I think it's called. Let me just make sure I've got the right title of that. Team Viewer. That's what we're going to be looking at next week. So we shall see you next week. Bye for now. Now. Oh.